Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm Jay Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is LeAnn Morgan.
It's Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Reverend and the Reprobate.
That's me.
I am Lucas Pinkert. I'm the Reverend today. With me, as always, is a man whose mom is on
Perpetually.
perpetually incarcerated.
Yep.
It's Dan Gibson. What's going on, Big Dan?
Good. Last week was a little rough. We lost contact with Mom.
Yeah.
There for a little bit. Turns out she stayed secure and she's been in
Isolation. Boy, that's rough.
Yeah, but we found out. We heard
she's such a people person anyway.
Yeah,
that it does make it difficult.
I don't know why she does these things.
Yeah.
You know, if you just serve your time, right? You're in there. There's nothing we can do about that. Just
behave.
Knuckles to the grindstone, nose down to the floor.
Serve your time. Well, hey,
delicious cheese sandwich.
with us today, Expo, is the guy who actually helped me get my start in music. Was the first guy that gave me a shot at playing bass in the studio.
How was the first time that you got your start in music?
It was rough, and this is the guy that has all the stories behind it. It is platinum award-winning songwriter, the wonderful, the talented Mr. Ron Rimes. How are you, sir?
Great. Thank you, Lucas.
It was easy. I like the fanfare.
It was easy dealing with you. It was some of these other guys.
Well, probably because I didn't know any better at 15. Like, I was so intimidated going into the studio.
For every one of Lucas's, there's 15 me's.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's why they made us such different sizes. So,
why'd they make me bigger?
I don't know. Just roll with it. So, Ron, we're kicking off several weeks where we're going to be talking to musicians. Danley and I met playing in a band with another guy that you know, Jared, who did just an incredible guitar player, but Captain Inconsistency, as he's been come to.
He's kind of a loose cannon.
He is. He is a bit of a loose cannon, though. We love Jared, and we're happy. He's doing some stuff with the Britney Spears experience now.
Toxic.
Yeah, which if you're
free throw out for them.
Yeah, good for them.
I haven't checked him out, but
nope.
Jared's a fantastic guitar player.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guitar player. But anyway, so that's how Danley and I got to know each other, and then we were talking when Dad was on the show. He was talking about, you know, him and Mom having to drive me back and forth to the studio. Well, it was Ron's
where you
studio.
were just laying down fat beats.
Ron would give me a CD and send me home and tell me, hey, I need you to record this in 2 days.
So from your perspective, this kid just has his dad drive him.
Yep.
And he is just capable.
He was capable. He was very capable. It was amazing. Very good musical chops. And I was, he spoiled me because I thought, okay, well, I can record, I'm just going to be fun. I built the studio so I could demo some of my songs because I'd written over 700 songs.
Good grief.
The good news is a lot of great things has come out of the studio. The bad news is I've got about song number 12 demoed by now. but a lot of the songs got cut.
Yeah.
And so, that was what got released was an artist that had a deal or whatever. So it was cool.
That's awesome.
But you guys were really fun to work with. And
Thank you.
I loved the music and it just was,
Well, I was so intimidated. I was so intimidated because we heard these stories about Ron, and we'll get into some of this. It was like, okay, now when we go into this studio, this is the guy who wrote songs for LeAnn Rimes. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm 15, right? I don't even have my driver's permit yet. Like I have like my dad's got to drive me everywhere. I can't even drive. It wasn't until later.
Going to be there making comments. By the way.
No joke, right? And so and I remember it like walking into the studio. It had been a couple of years since I'd played in band. And Ron sits me down and makes me listen to a metronome in order to try to play anything, and I just fell apart. And it was one of the things that I always...
secret kryptonite of every bass player.
Oh,
of any musician.
Of any musician, yeah.
I just especially hate the bass guitar.
Yeah.
That's because he's not any good at it, Ron. That's the
Oh,
reason
I
why.
see what it is.
Yeah.
No, he's a bass player, so I'm
So-
razzing him.
But I remember, being a very young musician at that point, I was completely intimidated picking up, going to your studio in particular, playing bass, even on the songs that we had written. The metronome was terrifying to me because I'd never practiced with one. We never practiced with one as a band. And I remember especially early on, like our drummer couldn't stay with it. And we were just struggling with a lot of different things. And the way that you encouraged us, the way that you talked to us, I think is probably what kept me playing music instead of doing what I did with my saxophone. Because with my saxophone, I had a bad sax teacher in like 7th or 8th grade, and I was like, I'm done with this forever.
No, this
And
is
I
what he
didn't-
said is this is a later in life.
Yeah, well, I didn't pick it up until
challenge.
22 years later.
Right.
As it now,
Right.
my wife got me one for Christmas, and so I'm like, you know what? I remember how to play this. I know a little bit more about music theory. I need something else to be terrible at. Let's try saxophone.
Concert F.
Yeah, let's try saxophone again. But I was at that point with bass because I'd had kind of my heart broken with music, and you were the guy, I think, for myself and for several of the others in the band that encouraged us that we could do this, we weren't pro musicians yet, and that we could make it to that point.
I actually was curious on when I would get to meet you because I've just heard about you for like, I don't know how long we've been friends.
Yeah, we've been friends for probably
15
16 years, yeah.
I've just heard about Ron.
He
Ron,
really
Ron,
is
Ron
the
this,
man, the
Ron,
myth,
Ron,
the
Ron,
legend.
Ron.
Yeah.
Well, when you have 9 kids, then it's hard for anybody to meet you because running in circles all the time.
This is true.
But here's the thing. Now they're all adults, of course,
Yeah.
all 9 of them. But my youngest one just turned 20.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's Luke.
Yeah, nice.
I think he was probably in the studio toddling
He
around.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bitty
But
thing.
if it makes you feel any better about your sax, my trombone's still in my storage bin outside. Same kind of experience
start
I
a
had with
ska
my
band.
trombone. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a ska band would be the worst thing that the three of us could do.
Yeah, that
So-
trombone needs to stay right where it is, too.
So is that what you got your musical start on, was trombone?
Actually, where I got my musical start was, you remember that class in school where the music teacher says you need to go buy a recorder and they send the note home and then your
Great
parent
hot
takes
plus
you.
buns. Hot cross
Yeah,
buns.
so yeah, exactly. And Mary Had a Little Lamb and all these other
Three
songs.
Blind Mice.
Yep,
Just the
yes,
same as
right
their
there.
hot cross buns.
Yeah, it's the same song.
And
yeah.
so, long story short, there was one music store that had just come to Louisville. Wasn't there very long. It was on Main Street, and a guy named Mr. Ribble worked there. And my mom took me in to get this flute, and I saw a silver tone guitar on the way in the door. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's really what I want right there.
He was just
And she
shining
said,
and calling out to you.
She kind of looked at it. She started asking questions. This thing was like $50, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of money back then. And you know, but I said, oh, I'd really love to learn how to play that. And this guy was a guitar teacher. And so that's how it started, because she said, I tell you what, if you will promise me that you will practice this thing every single day, you will not miss a day, I will get it for you.
Did you live
She
up to that?
wished she had never said that. Like, 'cause she's like, put that thing away.
No
You know, it's
joke.
like-
Yeah.
But anyhow, and so it started right there. And I listened to country radio, and it was Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and all these people. And when I heard a good song, you know, I tried to learn how to play it. And that's how it started for me. And the band, I wanted to play drums in the band.
Okay. Yeah, because the drummers seem
I
like the
wanted to
coolest one
play-
until
well,
you play
and-
with them.
Yeah,
They seem
I
really
didn't know
cool.
that drummers were crazy at the time. I didn't know. Just kidding, all you drummers. But anyhow,
They're just roadies.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, they have to be, when you have to subdivide beats like that in your head on the fly, you know,
Yeah.
it probably does something to you.
I
I'm just
think
saying.
so. That's why the old joke is like, can you tell whether or not the drum is level? It's if the drummer's drooling out of both sides of his mouth.
Yep. Yeah, and like you've heard the banjo joke, you know, about the guy that went to go sell his banjo, and he left it out in the car, went in and talked to the guy in the music store, and
Melted.
he came back out and there was another banjo sitting there next to it. But anyway, so but that's how it started. And the trombone, I did not want to play the trombone. I wanted to play the drums. And it's a
Trombone's
shame
pretty
because
cool.
it really would have now that I'm doing so much
Yeah.
production work, and you got to come over sometime now because
Yeah.
I've gotten very deep into the production side to where I've learned
I'll just wait outside.
What to do and not do. But anyhow, so in the band, I did learn how to read notes in the band on the bass clef.
Yep. Or the F clef, as it's called over across the pond.
Yes.
They've got all kinds of weird words for everything. Like a whole note is called a semibreve.
Oh, man.
It's ridiculous.
I just call it a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
How long have you gone without putting your guitar down or not failing to pick it up?
Oh, I've gone years at a time before I finally got to the place where, now when I was a kid, I never put it down once I picked it up.
That's what I'm asking. Like,
Yeah.
did you play for 8 years straight when you got the guitar?
Oh, at least. Yeah. In fact, the first song I wrote was called "This Guitar Got Me in Trouble Again." and it's a true song,
Yeah.
Promised her that I'd be through by 10, but once you get to going and the music starts to flowing, to quit just would be a sin. This guitar has got me in trouble again.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
anyhow,
a great song.
it just, but that's, so I just loved, creating and listening and, but when I reached the age of about 18 or 19, because I started when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
And when I reached the age of about 19, then I would put it down for lengthy periods of time because I was told, get a real job. Yeah. Like my buddy in Nashville told me, his dad was a music director at a church. And he said he was talking to his dad one day, and he said, son, if you want to never have to work a day in your life, I will tell you how to never have to work one day in your life. He says, find something that you love to do, and do that, and you will never have to work a day in your life. And so he said, he came back about 4 or 5 days later. He said, Dad, I figured out what I want to do. And he says, what's that? And he said, music. And he said, anything but that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, I loved it, but I was told that I really needed to get a real job, and I did. And my dad had a barber shop.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that he told me that, because I still, I wouldn't have the songs I have if I wasn't, intermingling with all these people.
Yeah, listening to other people's stories.
Yeah. I tell people, I warn them coming in the door, the things you tell me may wind up in a song, so be careful. But, that's how it got started.
Yeah, that's one of the things my wife mentioned to me today. She was like, Ron still cuts hair like periodically, right? It's like, yeah, he does. She goes, well, I'm not saying anything, but if he's got time. So
actually, we both could use haircuts.
Yeah. So
I could use one as bad as either one of you guys.
So you start out at 10 years old, right?
Yes.
Playing guitar.
Yes.
Did you go the band route, or did you always know that you wanted to be a songwriter?
I did not know then that I wanted to be a songwriter.
Okay.
What I wanted to do is I listened to the people on the radio, and so of the day, there were people like Jim Reeves, Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, Patsy Cline. She had already passed, but her music was still in
Right.
recirculation. Loretta Lynn.
Oh yeah.
Great songwriter. And Dolly Parton was on the radio a lot, and so I wanted. There was this little magazine called Country Hit Parade,
Okay.
and it had the chords, and kind of a basic, kind of like a cheat sheet,
Right.
of the songs, and so I would listen to radio and I'd play along with the songs.
Huh.
And I had this dream of going to the Grand Ole Opry someday. And that was my dream, and I really wanted to be an artist,
Okay.
but I always kind of felt a little bit like the ugly duckling, I did.
Yeah.
Well, I weighed about 100 pounds soaking wet. My dad said I had to jump around the shower to get wet. And I just, but and my voice has never been what I would like for it to be. I can put a song together with it, but it's not my strength.
Okay.
So
that was just never.
So that was my ambition, and I never thought about songwriting heavy duty until I've dabbled a little bit, but when I was 33, I kind of had a grand awakening where I had gone and done this get a job thing. Mm-hmm. and I always felt like there was a little something missing. And I saw this movie, City Slickers, and there's one line in there where the outlaw says to Billy Crystal, he says, "You got to find that reason you were put here, that one thing you were meant to do." And that line just resonated with me, and I thought, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
You know, I always felt like I was put here for music, but it kind of got washed away and watercolored away, and you know, and then it just, you know, it just came to me. I was very good at writing in school.
Yeah.
You know, I never studied, but I never did my homework, but I made good grades, and I got out of school in 3 years in high school, and creative writing was always fun for me, and I thought, maybe I'm supposed to write songs. And then I got a song idea and wrote it down, and you know, and I really got into it and thought that's what I'm supposed to do.
So you didn't start writing until you were 30?
I didn't start writing. I dabbled a little bit, like that chorus thing. Okay, but I didn't put together a whole song till I was 33.
Wow.
That's what I was going to ask. So when you're writing all of these songs, you said 700.
Yes.
You know, do you hear a melody at all, or is it really a creative writing approach that you take?
I started out early in my career as hearing lyrics. I hear lyrics. Actually, what it is, it's like I try to be a radar for the truth. You know, it's like an antenna.
That's a
really
good,
an antenna
line too.
for the truth. And what happened is, I grew up in a home where, you know, my dad's dad was very quiet. They were farmers, you know, and it's work. And my dad was always a pretty quiet guy. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, okay, kids, you know, you got to quiet down, you know. And then when I got to be that, I had put a lot of constraint on myself, thinking that my interpretation of the gospel back then was I was supposed to be perfect.
Right.
You know, and I was... No, not coincidentally, I was about 32 when I learned for the first time it was okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that was liberating, you know.
No joke.
And then I started unleash. I had a lot of emotions that I had held and bottled up inside. My mom and dad are the most wonderful people on the planet, but when I was born, my mom was 14, my dad was 18, and by the time my mom was like 22, she had 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
So I had 3 little sisters, and we were busy. And,
yeah, no joke.
You know, so, and I just, at that point, that was the first time that I was kind of had a little time to think, really, and just kind of go, what would I do if I started with a blank slate? What was I put here to do?
Yeah.
And I got the words first all the time, and then I would hear the melody after the words.
Well, I think it's cool that you found your calling, because I think there's a lot of people, me included, that found myself, you know, young, hearing, needing to get a job, but also wanting to have money to start a family and all that,
right.
and then spending however many years in corporate America or in a job that you don't, you know, truly love, and you're going, you know, what am I here for?
Yeah.
I think the search for meaning is universal. One
of the great things that happened to me is, you know, I started out kind of resenting the whole barbering thing because that wasn't my idea of what I loved the music so much. But, you know, I got to work with my dad for over 40 years, and it is one of the greatest gifts I was ever given. Yeah. And now my dad, he's 86, his favorite thing to do is come up in the studio and listen to the music. He's just always bragging on the music. He loves the, you know, that aspect.
And you worked together for how long?
Over 40 years.
40 years.
This is my 51st year doing hair.
Wow.
I'll be 68 in April.
Well, you look good for 68.
Well, thank you, sir.
I was thinking we were probably closer to the same age with how old I'm getting.
Stop that. But anyhow, now later on, the melodies, I started hearing melodies.
Yeah. So
and then I would put them together. And now it's like, it's kind of the great thing. There's some parallels in hairstyling. If you take it at a real serious artistic design level, believe it or not, there's some parallels to that in songwriting.
So talk to us about what those parallels are, because that seems like a completely abstract idea.
I'm ready for a music
having to create
barber
having
analogy.
to create on demand.
Okay.
So like
someone walks in
so
and
you got an
says,
hour.
Fix me.
I've got an hour here with this person, and realistically, an artist like myself, I could spend 6 hours doing something to this, and it'd be what I want it to be. But I've got to come up with it in an hour, and so the way you do that is you learn to free yourself mentally, emotionally, immediately, and let the ideas flow, and then you kind of edit them together. And so the process of creating just about anything, I've done portraits too, and oil portraits and painted, and the process is it's very similar. It's like, none of us have an unlimited amount of time,
Right.
To finish anything. Well, we do, but we know where the other side of that will be. Our art's going to be very good.
Yeah.
But on this earth, we don't. None of us have unlimited time, and so it's something very liberating to me was when I figured out I could get an idea, and I could just plant it back here like a seed, and then I could just observe and think, what's the truth about that?
Yeah.
What's the truth about this?
So you mentioned that it's compared to hairstyling because you've got this time limit. Well, the other thing because I worked for a little while at a salon, and I did, and one of the things that our stylists despised, because they felt like it took away from their ability to be creative, was when somebody came in with a picture and they said, "Hey, I want you to do this," right? But as a songwriter, that same kind of thing happens, where a record label or an artist will come to you and they say, "Hey, I want to do something in this style. It needs to be like this." How do you approach that from the
most liberating thing that I have ever found is the truth. And we know, Christ is the truth.
Sure.
But there is absolute truth.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, so then you could come to me with a picture, because when I first started doing hair, if you came to me with a picture, I go, no, I want to do anything. I want to do this. I'd immediately be a little bit push away. But for me, I look at the picture, I look at the person. Will your hair do that? No, your hair will not do that. And then I'd be honest with them, and then I'd say, but you could do this or this or this. And it's the same process in the studio. It's like the truth really does set you free. When you start measuring against that standard, there is absolutely no limit to, keeping yourself on the right path, And that it's songs, whether it's comedy, think about the entertainment business, whether it's comedy or whether it's serious, or whether it's some type of dramatic thing or whether it's a song. The greatest songs of all time, if you put a truthometer on it, it'd be over here like this,
right?
In the red, because the needle would be in the red, because the truth is it doesn't change, and therefore it's universal.
Yeah.
And I used to have a little bit of an argument about the truth with one of my daughters, who is my most rebellious child. And she said, "Dad, now your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth, and there's no such thing as absolute truth."
Right.
And I said, "Well, if there's no such thing as absolute truth, you could say that."
That's
okay.
That's a fair point.
And then I showed her a big boulder at the end of the street. And I said, if you point your car at that boulder and you put that accelerator down 100 miles an hour, at the end of the street, you will find the truth. If you aim it at that boulder,
yeah,
you're going to run into the truth. And I said, and if I do that with my car, I'm going to run into the same truth that you're going to run into. And, but it really, I can't overstate what an important element of songwriting that is. So think of your favorite song.
As long as there's a truth at the core of the song is what you're saying.
Yes, because the truth, it doesn't change. And it's powerful. It's powerful.
That art, there's a quote. It's from V for Vendetta that I think of. The artists use lies to tell the truth, while politicians use it to cover it up. Which is a whole other conversation. But I like that quote, because artists do end up, whether it's writing a love song, unless you actually did each one of those things, it is a lie in and of itself. Yeah.
Well, it's like, here's the thing. It's easier. The easiest thing for me to write from is an experience, and it doesn't have to be my experience.
Okay. So you take other people's experiences and write from their perspective?
Yeah.
Or mine, but it doesn't
Right.
have to be either or, For me, that is the simplest thing, It just makes it so simple. I'll give you an example. I had a client who I saw for years and years, and one day she didn't show up for her appointment, and she was always on time, everything. She didn't show up. So I'm like, wow, okay, that's not like her. So then I called, and I got a voicemail.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day I called her cell phone, I got a voicemail. And then the next day I called her office, and I got her voicemail. So the day after that, her daughter came in and told me that she had had a sudden heart attack and passed away.
Oh, no.
And the very first thing out of my mouth, because you knew exactly where she was spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
So the very first thing out of my mouth is, well, you don't have to wonder where she is,
Yeah.
And then she left, and I thought about it, and I wrote down, I don't have to wonder where you are. And, from that line, that truth, okay, there's so many mysteries in this universe, so many things I'll never comprehend, like the way you left so suddenly, or the silence where your laughter's been. but through my you all right? Okay? I choked him up.
You did. You got him.
But through my tears,
shaken.
but through my tears, I can see the wonder of all the love you brought into our life, and I'll always see your eternal smile, because I know love endures. Of this much I'm sure. I don't have to wonder where you are. Heaven's not so far, and the way you lived your life just leaves no doubt. I know that you're with friends somewhere, sharing joy up there. Thank the Lord. I don't have to wonder where you are. See, it's easy to write the truth, because that's the truth.
So you have like all 700 songs that you've written memorized? Because you just rattle them off.
Not all of them, but not all of them. But for me, it was always like it was a gift,
Yeah.
Was that one published?
Not yet. I just demoed it about 2 weeks ago, and that was about 8 or 9 years ago. That's what I'm going to do in my retirement days.
Yeah, it's demo songs.
I'm a demo songs.
Yeah.
Demo, and yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned this a couple. Go ahead.
Do you think that you'll find your voice? Because you mentioned, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. You weren't able to really dial it in, figure out, where.
Yes,
your
that's
style.
that's starting to happen right now, actually.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's the practical learning side of using your voice, but there's also a plumbing side to it.
Literally.
Okay, and the shape of your tongue, the shape of your palate, and all this. So I have some things to overcome with that. But here's the cool thing about it: it's like, to get a song across, the emotion is what's important, and I've got that. I mean, I've got the emotion, and so I can put a song across, and that's something I'm looking forward to getting to explore, because there are better tools, and ways now where I can, study how I'm phrasing things and what have you. But it's not a given like the guitar. I can pick up the guitar and I hear something and play it, and it's just not a given. I have to work at the vocal part.
Yeah.
Let me just say this. What's the worst that can happen?
Somebody leaks it out there.
And it takes your song, right?
Do you think,
No, I don't mean that. I mean, somebody hears it and goes,
here's
"Wait,
what I'm
that
saying.
was half baked." No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
seriously.
people
I don't
like
worry
Bob Dylan have.
Yeah.
Oh, my son is a
made it.
Bob Dylan interpreter. He goes to
Yeah, he's a Bob Dylan
Yeah,
interpreter.
that's what I call him.
And Bob
because
Dylan is incredible.
I
The
went
point I'm
to
making
I
is
went to
his
a
voice is
show with
unique.
him one time. I went to a Bob Dylan show with my son one time. You got to see Bob Dylan. He's his favorite songwriter. So I went to the show with him, and I'm like, "What'd he say?" He said, and he's like, "Okay, you're the Bob Dylan interpreter."
So you've mentioned demoing the songs a couple of times, and I know that there are people in our audience that are musicians, but also people that have never been in the music industry or the music business. What's that process like whenever you demo a song, and what does it mean to demo a song?
So every song starts with an idea, and then some form of, saving it in a recording of some kind, or, some people would do it with staff paper and write notes down. That's the way they would save it. I'm not big on notating. For me, God gave me the gift of being able to hear the music. Like if I can hear it, I can play it almost in real time.
Oh, wow.
You know, and by ear, and to me, like just notating music just doing that by itself is kind of like trying to take a picture of God. You know, it's like a crescendo doesn't say the same thing as the feeling when you build, know right where to build and where the emphasis in the build is. So I like, you know, the kind of spontaneous part. But demoing a song is capturing an idea of the song and then really demoing it for a commercial music purpose. You have to take it to a level that it's competitive with what people are hearing in the given market. You know, and that's a whole different thing.
So how is it different because I remember whenever we were playing, we would send in like a demo album, or then it shifted, and really with the advent of iTunes, the entire industry changed.
Yes.
Right. So whenever I was first coming up in music, you would make a demoed CD, you would put your best songs on it, you would have somebody that you trusted record it,
right.
and then you would send it to an A&R at a record company and hope that they listened to it and that you know you didn't bore them. And there were specific things that you did. Well, when Danley and I were playing in Crimson Fall, we started with, you know, the demo CDs, but then it was, hey, we don't want this, we want files. Right. Like send us an email with 3 files in it or you know, whatever. As a songwriter, though, you're not looking necessarily to get picked up for an entire album. You're demoing things differently. What's that process look like for a songwriter?
Well, for me, I've learned that capturing a demo, if I'm going to record there's different process. So like if I'm going to take an artist who's a songwriter, or my stuff, you know, I'm going to do it with me or whoever it is. I'm going to capture the demo. I've learned that the capture phase is when the writer is so hot on the song right after they've done it, and they have all the emotion in it. And that's when it's really, you have the best chance of getting the true expression of that song right there and then. And so I try to capture that pretty quick on with just one instrument and a vocal. And then whether, you know, depending on the nature of the pitch, if it's going to be pitched to a real commercial thing, then I might hire studio musicians in Nashville, go to Nashville, cut the tracks, come back and do vocals and overdubs, you know. But the other thing, if it's something I'm going to build from the ground up, like this project I'm working on right now for a guy, it's just amazing. We started with guitar vocals, and it's got such great energy because he felt every word of every song, and you know that was before you hear it, you know, 9,000 times in the mix process. But that's, you know, it's demoing a song means capturing it so that you don't forget the words, you don't forget the music, and you're able to put some kind of a, you know, this is an idea. And people in the business used to be, when I first started and when LeAnn was coming up and we were sending our demos in, people in the music business could hear just a guitar vocal or a piano vocal, and they didn't want that whole production thing. Yeah. Because most people that produce, let me just say it differently, a lot of people are producing music that's not at a professional level, and they're so distracted by the production they can't hear the feelings and the words and the music in the song. Right. Okay. But nowadays it's gotten different out there. There's so many people recording off of samples and loops and all of these super high quality audio things that people's ears are kind of conditioned to hearing that. And so now when you're pitching something at a commercial level, you almost need you need to have a, you know, great demo of it that would represent it in whatever market it's going to be in. Now,
so you're talking about potentially like mixing, mastering, all of that, for a pitch.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because those used to be the things that, like, when you were a band,
when you're done with an album.
Yeah, that's what you would do. or if you were able to afford it, because the process is
Yes,
expensive.
very.
If you were able to afford it, or you had a friend that you could swap favors or something with, where you would like, okay, well, I'll play, and that's what we did for a lot of our stuff was.
Yep.
We had several guys in the bands that were great musicians, and we would say, hey, look, we're going to play for whatever you need us to play on for the next 3 months,
Right.
without any questions, if
Right.
you record our band, because something that was well produced and
Yes.
well mastered would catch people's ears. And now that's certainly not the case. So you did mention your time with LeAnn, and I want to get into this, because
too.
if you ever walk into Ron's stall
have to.
and if you ever walk into Ron's stall at Hairmenders, I don't know if it's still like this, but the last time I was there's gold and platinum records just hanging on the walls, and I remember the first time I walked in there, then I was like, okay, you're on all of these, right? You wrote songs for this, and you actually were. And I want to make sure that I say this properly, because you've corrected me on it several times whenever I've misquoted it throughout the years. But you were part of the core group really at the beginning of LeAnn's rise to success. I know at the beginning I said you discovered her, and you were like, no.
Yeah. God discovered her and blessed her.
So how did you meet LeAnn Rimes?
So it was an answer to a prayer.
Okay.
And it was a pivotal moment as to whether music was going to be anything that ever happened in my life, or it was just going to be a footnote of, someday I go back and say, yeah, I wrote this song, did this, whatever.
Yeah.
So was this in that time frame where you're trying to reinvent and you're going, what am I?
So when I was 33 and I got into all the songwriting, I got into it. And I mean, I dove in head first, into the shallow pool. And I went to ASCAP in Nashville after I'd written about 30 or 40 songs. And I had a song that I wrote about being grateful called Don't Cry for Me.
Yeah.
And I told the words to the guys. Basically, it was this tear-jerking song, and it's like the phone call shattered silence that night. Mama said, hurry, he's losing this fight, and all the way into town, all I thought of was Dad and how he'd worked himself sick for the little we had, and I could feel my heart falling down to my feet on the elevator ride up to room 303. And as I walked through the door trying to hold back the tears, Daddy spoke peaceful and clear and said, don't cry for me, I've never been hungry. Don't cry for me, I've always been free. If you must cry, cry for some soldier's wife. Son, I've had a good life, don't cry for me. And with those words, He let go of my hand, and I realized then my daddy died a rich man, and now I give thanks for every day of my life and all that I have. So when it's my time, don't cry for me. I've never been hungry. Don't cry for me. So I played the song for the guy, and he said, "Man, that's really personal, and I'm really sorry about your dad." And, he said, "But that's just, son. That's a very personal song." I said, well, my dad's fine. I was just trying to say, if you could say that you were grateful on the last day of your life, you're really grateful. Yeah. That was my thought that gave me the song. Yeah. So, so it started there, and he said, okay, how many songs have you written? I said, 40 songs. He said, okay, go back and write 600 or 700 more, and then come back.
So you did.
And I thought to myself, I thought to myself, I bet nobody does. At first I got mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't angry in his presence, but I left there and I thought, what an insult. And then I thought, I bet nobody does that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go write 600 or 700 songs, come back. And I did, but the guy wasn't there anymore because he wasn't no longer in the music business. But here's the point of it all. The man was correct, because after writing all those songs, I was prepared. Now we moved from 33, and I'd been to songwriter workshops in Nashville and done these other things. And now all of a sudden I'm coming up on 40. And I think it was at 40 or 41, I had done all these songs, and I had written all these songs, and I thought I had some really great songs, and other people thought so.
That song was like lyrically, that's
beautiful.
A really great song.
Thank you. It's like
I
have so many
right
like
now.
that, different, but so the songs are there, and so I thought, And I went to this songwriters workshop, the third one or so that I went to, and there was a guy out there who was a hit songwriter who was giving a lecture. Mm-hmm. He says, "Let me straighten you boys out right now."
So he was literally lecturing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, "Let me straighten you out right now." He said, "Here's what it's like. There's 20,000 people a year." Now, this was in the heyday of country music, which it's not in the heyday at this point.
Right.
Okay.
You don't think Luke Bryan's the heyday of country music?
The subject matter of today's songs is lacking. Okay.
Okay.
So
That's a soft yes.
yeah. So here's the deal. He says, 20,000 people a year move here to write songs. He said they join a song, and he says, and they're writing an average of a song every couple of days. He said they join the existing songwriting community of 25,000 who are writing 2 or 3 songs a day. He said in a good year, you have 10 big artists with 10 songs on each album. That's back when they did 10 songs. He says, and so that's 100 songs at the award show. Many of the artists write too. And I went and did the math, and I said, that is like the Texas lottery, only worse.
Yeah.
So I came back, and I got down on my knees. I got very discouraged. I thought, I have wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
I've wasted a lot of time. And, I got on my knees, and this was the first time the guitar, I had picked it up, loved playing it, and I'd put it in the box. You got to stay there because I got to do this, okay? Then I pick it back up, and I put it back in the box.
That's what I do.
I mean, I've put it in a box for 10 years sometimes. I mean,
What kind of box is it?
The case.
Just a case.
The case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have a special box for his guitar that he puts in
not
there.
gift wrapped, but I put,
Don't touch this box, kids.
the
This is
coffin. That's
guitar
the box. I had to put it in the coffin, okay? And then
That's what I was picturing.
and
This is a hilarious picture.
yeah.
Just
And
pile
so
of
I
guitars.
put the thing away, and so then it'd be like, okay, dang it, So I had done this over and over again, and this time I meant it. I said, God, if you don't want me to write songs, if you don't want me to do music, I need you to show me what you put me here to do. And if you don't want me to do that, I will put this thing away, and I will never touch it again. I will not pull it back out. I'll treat it, I didn't say this, but now I know, what I know now, I treat it like Lucas's instrument from band there. What was it, a saxophone?
Yeah, my saxophone.
It's Lucas's sax and my trombone, okay?
So you said that to God.
And I did, and I said, I'm serious.
Is that when LeAnn
And
Rimes
said,
showed up?
I said, but if you want
That'd
me
be
to
so
do
great.
this, please show me.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm kind of thick-headed, so if you could kind of give me a clue, that'd be great, but just show me.
You're going to need to spell this one out for me, dear Lord.
Yeah. And then because I said,
R-O-N.
I said because I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And I reached the total end of myself, 100,000%. I was just despondent, thinking, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I just admitted it right there completely. And 3 days later, this guy says, hey, he had demoed a song of mine, and he sang at a local Opry, and he says, hey, there's this girl, and she heard the song you wrote, and is a song called Win Some, Lose Some, Lonesome. And he said, and she wants to write with you. And I said, oh, that's awesome. He says,
I'm waiting on a call from God
Yeah.
right now. I got to hang up.
I kind of thought, well, maybe that's a sign, And he says,
Yeah.
He says,
For sure.
He says she's 12 years old.
Oh.
And I said, I just laughed. I laughed, okay? 12 years old. That is funny, okay? So I crawl out of bed. I sneak real quietly out of bed about 10:45 once everybody's asleep, get my guitar, write my little songs, and I'll just call the 12-year-old parents up and say, can you drive her over here to write a song? That's what I thought,
Is Alexi awake?
Okay? And God just humbled me like, anybody that knows LeAnn knows.
Yeah, she was the hardest worker.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst thing I could have ever thought about her. And as it would come to be, the next week I went to see somebody else sing at a Opry show, and she was singing there. She came out to sing. I thought she was about 21, and I had never heard such a huge voice in my life. And I said, man, I've got to meet that girl at the intermission.
Yeah.
You know, I got to go meet her and see if she'll write with me, you know, or wants to do anything with my songs or whatever. I never heard anybody sing like that.
When you first met her, did you guys talk about how weird it was that your names are similar?
Yes, here's what happened. So I go to meet her at the intermission, and she gives me a business card with like 4 or 5 different numbers on it, and I'm like, and it said LeAnn Rimes Entertainment, Inc. And I said, wow. And then I give her my card, and she says, yeah, my friend told you about me. And I said, your friend told you about me? And she says, yeah, you know. And I said, and then it dawned on me. I said, are you 12 years old? And she says, is that a problem? I mean, just like that. And I said, not when you sing like that, okay? Yeah. And I could tell she was so mature and present. And so I said, you know what's really wild? Our names are almost alike. Mm-hmm. I said, my middle name is Lee, and your first name is LeAnn. And my last name is Grimes, and your last name is Rimes. And she says, but when I said that about the first name, she said, no, it's not. When I said your first name is LeAnn, she said, no, it's not. And I said, yeah, and no, it's not. It turns out LeAnn's her middle name.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Classic.
And so, yeah.
And then, but that's such a 12-year-old thing to do. Yeah. Oh, your first name's LeAnn. Nuh-uh.
Yeah. I mean, she knew what she wanted.
Yeah.
I just want you to think
one of the greatest gifts I ever had in my life ever was God putting her in my path, because the way He did it, mm-hmm. and I wish I could take the feeling that's in my heart and have everybody be able to just like completely feel it 1,000,000%. Because the way He did it is, He took the most unlikely situation on earth and said, okay, you told me now I could do something with you because you asked me what to do, okay? Yeah. And I told her that night, I said, I'm going to do something I've never done in my life. I'm going to take 1 day a week off of my day job, and I will write with you, wherever you want to write. And we wrote, and within 7 months, I'm sitting in I think like the 5th row at the Grammys, watching her accept Best New Artist of the Year 7 months after that prayer.
Wow.
And my song was on the album that, you know,
so
that she
14 years old, she's winning that Grammy, and you're sitting there.
And you're helping her write the other one.
Yes, because she was almost 13 when I met her. Yeah. She was 12, but she was almost 13. And it's like, so it was like, so that at that point, I don't think she had turned 14 yet when she won the Grammy. You know, I might be wrong on the timing there, but I mean, it was like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, it's just unbelievable to me. What it was? I'm sorry. 7 months after that is when she won all the CMAs.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and she performed at the CMAs like 3 different songs that night, and I was invited out there because she needed her hair done. So we wrote another song while we were out there. It's crazy.
You are uniquely talented.
Yeah.
Maybe lacking in just like makeup skills.
So you don't get invited out there because you're the person who wrote the songs on the album. You get invited out there to do the hair.
Songwriters, no. Well, I mean, you know, and honestly,
that's awesome.
I was very close, and still I'm very close with her family and her.
Right.
It's like her family. You know, she was so special, and they had issues with the way kids treated her at school.
Oh, no doubt.
She got stuck in a locker, locked in her locker, knives pulled on her when she was young because of jealous girls.
Is this in Garland?
That's in Garland,
right?
That's in Garland, and they took her out of school to homeschool her.
That's where my wife grew up, was in that area, the hard streets of Garland.
And so when I met her, she was living in a little bitty apartment, you know, like a 2-bedroom apartment, but it's like her parents knew, because I had 3 daughters.
Mm-hmm. That you were safe to
They knew that they saw how I was with my daughters, and they knew they could trust me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
And it was a safe place for her because she could come over and nobody would be in her face, and
Yeah.
she could just be. And she didn't have siblings, so they were almost like siblings to her.
That's too cool.
So
Did you ever call her at 10:45 at night?
No.
Okay.
No.
I could see that being very funny. That the
No,
dad
no.
is just, LeAnn, it's Ron.
No, she'd be waking up at 10:45 on that kind of life once they start
Yeah.
touring. You
Gotcha.
know, I did call one night at 1 a.m. because I just woke up with this horrible dream that something was bad wrong with her, and I never call anybody that late. And I called her mom. I said, you know, because I knew they would still be packing from the show, and is LeAnn okay? Are y'all okay? And no, she passed out on stage tonight from dehydration. And that happened several times that I had dreams, you know, that were, and I'd never had that happen before. But the cool thing for me in this, I grew up dreaming about being something. I wanted to be something in the music business. First, I wanted to be an artist. Then I wanted to be the best songwriter in Nashville. And then, you know, God puts this situation in front of me, and here's this child, so gifted, and just like a cookie and a cracker in the goldfish pond in that business, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he just showed me what mattered, and it wasn't what I thought mattered.
Yeah.
And so that it was really a very unbelievable experience.
Yeah, and I think she still holds that, like, the record of the youngest ever to win a Grammy.
Youngest female artist, country female artist, yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, she was 14 years old and 182 days she accepted her Grammy.
Yep.
So that's incredible. So so obviously you know that she's incredibly talented.
Yes.
Your songs are on the album. You guys have written a lot of songs together. What is the feeling like when you watch the album, you know, get created, and then it hits gold status, and then it hits platinum? Like, what is, as a songwriter, and you're watching, you know, your
like
songs
watching
that you worked on?
Are you watching a reverse New York Times ball drop? You're
Yeah,
watching
like
it go
it's
higher.
like what in the world is going through your mind as you're
Right.
watching the trajectory of this
A
just
lot of-
continue to
and
to
don't
soar?
say yeah to that. That was a terrible example that I gave.
Well, a lot of
Trying to be
songwriters at that point with an artist like that, you'd be back just sitting back and waiting to see what happened. I was so blessed because, you know, she had a lot of events, needed her hair done for
Right.
those events, and her parents liked it. You know, her dad and I got along real good, and her mom too, and you know, so they were excited. They were excited for me as well as, you know, that I had a song that they thought was going to really do something.
Yeah.
And so it was so cool because I got invited to Curb Studios when she cut it.
Oh wow.
And so I'm in there with the guy that produced Andy Gibb, and he produced all these other artists, and Billy Dean, and all these other people, and just hanging out with them, watching the album go down. So I got to literally hear it, you know. And she walked in there and nailed the song like the first time.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're like, okay, you ready for the next one? He says, we don't need it. I mean, do it just in case I lose the first one, you
Right.
know. But yeah, to see it just go down like that, and then hear it on the radio, and you saw it being recorded,
Yeah.
you know, it was cool. It was an exciting time, you know.
Did you think that y'all were going to be as successful as you were with those first two albums?
Well, I'm not gonna say, y'all. I knew that she was gonna blow up. I had a dream, and they had not scheduled Blue to be her first song release.
Okay.
Her first song release was going to be a song on the album that didn't really go to number one, I don't believe, called Don't Ever Lose the Light in Your Eyes. That was going to be her release. And I was on my way to write with her one day in Garland, and I had a dream the night before that they changed her first song release to Blue, and instantly, overnight, everybody knew who she was, and it scared me.
Yeah.
Because now at this point, she's like one of my daughters, you know? I mean, obviously not my daughter, but I mean, I thought of her the way I thought of my daughters, you know, a kid in the world here. And, you know, and I got there that morning. I said, I need to talk to you. I said, you know, I had this dream, and it was kind of scary because I said, have you really thought about this whole fame thing? Because once you go in that door, you don't come out the same way you went in,
Right.
you know? And I said, because everybody knew who you were, and it was like you were pulled in a million directions all at once. And I said, is that something you would really want? And she said, you're very kind to think it could happen that fast, you know. And I had told her that they changed, in my dream, they had changed her first song to Blue. And you're very kind to think it could happen that fast and all. She says, but yeah, I would still want to do it because I know I'm supposed to sing. You know, it's not, I won't like the idea of the fame, but I know I'm supposed to sing. She said, but you know what's really weird, Ron? We got a call this morning and they changed the first release to Blue.
Wow.
And that was the first time I just knew, and I knew it was and the craziest thing was when it happened, we were in Nashville. Mm-hmm. We'd gone to that recording session because the whole album hadn't been recorded when Blue got released.
Okay.
And we were in that recording session, and then we go to eat at Cracker Barrel, and nobody knew who she was or what she looked like or anything. And the song Blue had just come out on the radio, and they were just buzzing about it. And you could hear, man, this girl, and she's like 13 years old, and oh my gosh, I never heard a voice like it. It sounds like Patsy Cline. And then something comes on the news that Patsy Cline's husband was driving down the road and heard the song and had to pull his car over and started tearing up and all this stuff. And we were just sitting there listening to all this stuff, you know, going, they don't know who she is. They don't know what she looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was surreal.
That she was sitting there in that Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was so
That's
surreal.
pretty cool.
That's so wild. And this would have been
Well, this is
like 96 is when all this is
1996.
when all this is
And
happening.
within a year's time, I got to meet almost everybody and visit with that I grew up listening to on the radio out there in the country. And 3 miles east of Louisville was like in the middle of nowhere back then. So it was crazy, yeah.
That's totally wild.
From barber to songwriter.
Yeah,
The
and
Ron
you
Grimes
ask about
story.
what it's like to have the gold records and the platinum
Yeah.
records. I don't know about the gold because what happened is that first record broke all kinds of records for a female in the business. It was the biggest selling album, I believe, by a female up to that time in country music. It shipped 5.5 times platinum. Shipped.
Good grief.
Yeah. And I was in...
So they don't even have a category for that, really, is what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying it wasn't like I went from seeing it go to this to this to this.
It was just
it
immediate.
shipped 5.5 times platinum.
So like when it
I get it.
because it came out.
The initial printing was
the initial
monstrous.
printing was 5.5 million copies, and they all shipped and sold out through. And then the other crazy thing about it is that
because that's because it's each like level of platinum is per million, so that's quintuple platinum, and its first pressing.
Yep. And you know, when I first met her, she had talked about wanting to go do a gospel album.
Yeah.
I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" "Well, I'm going to Tyler and work on my gospel album." Gospel album?
Tyler.
And I wasn't where I am now,
Right.
you know, completely. And I said, "I thought you were doing like country music." She says, "Yeah, but I'm going to do a gospel album, and then whenever I get famous, then I'm going to release that." And I'm like, "Really?"
If you're going to go to any Texas
Okay.
town to do gospel, what would you pick?
Shoot.
She worked with Bernie and Tyler.
I don't know, but Tyler was a good place for her.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
what happened later
not
on
Austin.
is when she found the song "How Do I Live," she told me that song reminded her of how she felt about God, and she couldn't wait for me to hear it. And she planted that song on that gospel album that she recorded when she was 11, and it became, and we were the night before the Grammys. The night before the Grammys, we're sitting there writing another song that wound up getting cut later called Together Forever Always. And we just had a talk, and I said, "You know why this has happened to you, don't you? It's like God has ordained what you're doing." You know? And about that time, and we had VH1 turned way down, it said, "LeAnn Rimes just became," and none of us knew this was coming, "the first artist in history to have an album go #1 country, #1 pop, and #1 Christian on the Billboard Top 100.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so on the record that "How Do I Live" got delivered on, which "How Do I Live" at the time became the longest charting song in the history of Billboard from the beginning of the charts.
Yeah.
It was on the charts longer than any other song. Something may have broken that record since then. I don't know. But at the time, it charted for over 52 weeks, like in the top 10. And so, before it came all the way back off the chart.
Yeah.
It was like 100 and something, I forget, between 52. It was like a year and a half that it was on the chart. And it broke every record of every song, Love Me Tender, I Fall to Pieces, you name it,
That's so wild.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's like God just said to me, not only do I understand what needs to happen here, I'm going to teach you some things about life, and you're not going to be able to deny that I was the reason that it happened. And that changed me forever.
Was it difficult? So, like, knowing her, she's like your daughter. She's very young, so she's in 96, she's only 14 years old, right? What's it like writing songs that are meant for a mature audience, right? Not like in content, but writing songs that's meant for a woman to sing or a man to sing love songs, especially is what she was particularly known for a kid, or as a songwriter. What was it also like seeing this person that you cared about, who you looked at as one of your daughters, having songs pitched to her that were obviously for a much more grown-up audience?
Well, the first record had a lot of really grown-up songs on it, and I did not participate in writing those.
Yeah.
The first song that I wrote with her that had the most promise that wound up on the Blue album was a song about, the opening line is, I can tell you've been crying on the inside. I can see right through your eyes what you're trying to hide. You got a real big wall covering up, Now we had to flip it to be a love song, what you're feeling, you covering up what you're feeling for me. Come on, baby, talk to me, But it was about, I could tell there was a lot under the hood there. She was going through a lot of not normal stress for somebody that age.
Right.
And I was always concerned about that. And the very first song that I wrote after I met her, for her and her mom, because her mom really didn't want this to happen. It was so hard for her to see her daughter. She felt like she was going off into the Shark Tank,
She didn't like seeing her. I mean,
well, she just felt like it wasn't going to be a healthy thing for somebody her age, and in many
it rarely
ways,
is, right?
In many ways, she was right. But LeAnn survived it. But it's like, So the very first song that I wrote right after I met him is, I can see that your sun is about to rise, because you got that world by the tail, look in your eyes. But if you should find that world unkind, remember this, And these are, so I always the songs I wrote with her, I always pointed to the spiritual side.
Yeah.
And and I mean the Christian spiritual side, more than anyone deserves.
Yeah.
If I woke up, tomorrow and my eyes couldn't see, in the darkness there'd be beauty, in love, and I'd love longer and wider, deeper and higher, because I've been loved more than anyone deserves.
Yeah.
So I didn't write those, but yeah, it was hard for me to hear those songs.
Yeah.
But I knew her well enough to know that she looked at this as like she was an actor, and
And she did some of that too later in her career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
she was a better actor than the aforementioned Britney Spears
in Road Trip.
In Road Trip, yeah.
Is that
Crossroads?
Okay,
Crossroads.
I don't know if there's very many appearances that she made.
No, there weren't a ton, but yeah.
Britney Spears also a very hard worker.
Yeah, she was incredibly, and much the same as what we saw. There were a lot
Let's
of
get off the Britney Spears highway.
Well, no, I'm just gonna say there were a lot of young ladies in that era, from like the mid '90s to the mid 2000s to the mid aughts,
with chokers
that like ran themselves ragged,
Went into
and
flames,
ended up burning out. And I wonder too, like how many of them, if they were to rise to prominence today, how many of them would have been handled differently,
right.
Because of what we know now. But would we have known any of that if we hadn't seen, some of these ladies just go through all that?
The
that
greed
turmoil
that drives so much of what the business can be hasn't changed. And, that was the most difficult thing for me, because I was so concerned about her well-being, and, I was trying to find a way to express it to her, and I wrote a song. I was praying that I would get a song.
Yeah.
And I realized the prayer was a song.
Wow.
You know, it says, "Oh Lord, I come to you on bended knee, not for me, no, not for me, but for the one who's traveling down your road. You know, the little one with the heavy load. Won't you wrap your arms around her and hold on tight wherever she may be tonight? Keep her safe, keep her warm, protect her heart from the storm. And for those who do her harm," which I saw much of, "for those who do her harm, won't you take them in your arms and help them fail and keep her safe and well?" Because I had a lot of the same concern her mom had, and we shared those concerns, you know. But she's, you know,
Seeing over the years people wishing, maybe attempting to cause harm.
there were a lot of people that would come around somebody like her for all the wrong reasons, and they would always be found out.
Yeah.
But before they were found out, they could do, you know, a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
You know.
But she was supremely talented, and you were too. And I think you've given, not just to LeAnn, but I can say in the same vein, and I've heard her talk about you on a couple of occasions in interviews and things, that she talked about the same thing that I saw as a young musician, and that is your consistent encouragement and your guidance were just completely, I think, irreplaceable in what's helped me to be able to remain in music. Well, we end on that note. We're going to switch gears because we end all of our interviews with a segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness, which is just some rapid fire questions that we're going to ask to you. You can answer them as shortly or as at length as possible. There are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones, so you need to be careful for those landmines.
Okay.
And Danley, if you'll get us started.
Sure. You can tell you what. I'll give you a couple examples or a couple options. You can go rogue and pick your own, right? If you want out this question, you can go back in time and write or give one of your current songs to Elvis, goodness, Elvis, or Johnny Cash, or a person of your choosing. Should you not want to go with those two?
Okay.
Who do you work with? If you could work with any, this is a really long, convoluted question.
So, are you saying which artist? If I could pick any artist to work with,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go Elvis versus Johnny Cash.
Okay.
First.
Okay, Elvis versus Johnny Cash. I'd probably give it to Elvis.
Okay. And then outside of that, anyone you could, dead or alive, that you could work with.
Man, I've been blessed to work with him already. I really have. I mean,
lucky.
No, I mean, there's been. I mean, oh my gosh! I work with this gal that we met each other because a friend said y'all need to meet each other because she was going to Nashville to look for songs with Nashville-based songwriters, and he says make sure you get this guy to Nashville too. And we wrote this song, and I'm like, wow! And I mean, we've written several songs, and she winds up. Our song makes it to Animal Planet, you know, is a big song, and then she winds up her tryout for The Voice. She moved to Europe, and her tryout for The Voice in Holland was #1 iTunes song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So I've gotten to work with such great.
I've
gotten to work with such great people already. So I'm going to say whoever could communicate the song the best would be that's how I would choose it, truly.
And why is that person Johnny Cash?
It's not. I said Elvis.
Okay,
you chose wrong.
So you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different acts. You've been to a lot of concerts. What do you think is your all-time favorite concert you've ever been to?
Man. The one I went to last night, or no, it wasn't last night. It was Friday night.
Okay.
We went and saw the Newsboys.
I noticed your shirt.
We saw the guy from Third Day. I can't
Mac Powell.
Yes, Mac Powell. Man, what a singer!
Yeah.
And then I saw
we used to make fun of Mac Powell so much growing up.
Yeah, but he's, he really put the song out there for that. But there was a guy there. It's not even my genre of music. I probably couldn't write a song that fits him at all. But his lyrics were just phenomenal. And let's see, who was with them? So I mean, the names to me, the names don't matter.
Yeah.
But very Latin-y, jazzy.
Oh, okay, so it was a different group. It wasn't the Newsboys, and it was
Yeah.
not.
And I'm telling you, he was just phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll do some research to see if it's not Danny Goki, was
Yes.
it? Yes. Okay.
The lyrics, they were just every lyric passed the truth check, like huge. I mean, they were flashing the words on the screen.
Yeah.
And I had a spiritual experience there with God. Just, you'd sing about faith, and it was like everything that's correct about faith. Oh, yes, is that correct? Yes, that is the truth. That is the truth. And so,
all right.
I loved that.
So the best concert you've ever been to is the one you went to on Friday.
Yeah, the one
All
I
right.
went to on Friday in Louisville.
right on. That's awesome.
Okay. Who has sang the national anthem the best you've ever heard?
LeAnn.
I wrote this question. I was like, I'm sure the answer. I thought about this later. It was going to be LeAnn Rimes.
I was
Yeah.
with her and her parents at the Rangers game, and she sang it at the Rangers game, and oh my gosh.
And it just floored everybody.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the better Rhymes, LeAnn or Shonda?
Come on. you know LeAnn is always,
Yeah.
I'm
She's
always
honest.
Ron's favorite rhymes.
Yeah.
Okay. You've written a ton of songs. What are your top 3 favorite songs of all time? Not ones you've written. Your top 3 favorite songs of all time.
Oh, okay.
See if
My
I
top 3 favorites of all
Try
time.
to throw them off.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
It's hard to narrow it down to that.
that's true. We'll
But-
give you one honorable mention.
One of my first very early.
Start with that one.
Yeah.
This is from when I was a kid. It still puts a chill on me. He ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Okay.
Okay.
The Hollies.
Okay.
It's an old song, but it's basically about helping others. My favorite song right now, just I have a hard time saying it's not one of my favorites of all time, is the Casting Crowns song that's out, The Only Scars in Heaven.
Oh yeah, that's phenomenal.
And why is that great? Tell me why that's a great song.
Because it's true.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
I haven't
Is
heard
it not? It's
really pretty.
the truth magnified.
Yep.
And there's a guy that I'm working with right now named Matt Hefner, and he's a worship leader on the weekends. He's a paramedic during the week. We've built his
fascinating.
record
Yeah.
from the ground up, and he wrote a song called Promise of Redemption that just blows me away. And the hook keeps coming back to is, not one promise will fail.
Nice.
Every lie that I've, said to save face, all this stuff that I've done, this and that, will all be erased, and not one promise will fail.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that song.
All right, so a song to be released in the future.
Yes.
Casting Crowns and the Hollies.
Yes.
I didn't see the Hollies coming. I'm going to be honest.
Well, it was just, you should listen to that recording.
Yeah.
It's pretty stout.
He's not heavy. He's my brother.
Yeah.
All right. And then, Dan, do you have one more?
Yeah, I got one more.
Go for it.
Okay. What did you think when you heard Lucas was going into ministry?
I thought that's a natural. I was not surprised.
Okay, so that's usually
because
Yeah,
because
for
the thing, with Lucas, when he came in the studio, he was a light, and he is a light, but it's like, I just, I could tell that who was guiding him, and I mean, and obviously his parents influenced him, but I could tell who was really, guiding you back then. You were serious.
I was
You
trying
weren't
to
playing
be.
around,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
He hates playing.
No.
Yeah.
I just hate all playing. All right. Well, last question. If there's any one tip that you could give to an aspiring songwriter, one piece of advice, what is it?
I asked this question to Harlan Howard. You may not know who Harlan Howard is, but Harlan Howard, at one time,
I know Harlan Williams.
Okay, Harlan Howard came to Nashville. He hopped a freight train as an orphan at 15 years old. He landed in Nashville, and he became the most successful songwriter in all of Nashville's history. At one time, he had 28 number one songs on the top 40 at the same time.
Good grief.
Unbelievable writer. He wrote "I Fall to Pieces" for Patsy Cline.
Yeah.
Pick Me Up on Your Way Down, Heartaches by the Number, I've Got a Tiger by the Tail. He's just written so many, Blame It on Your Line, Cheating, Cold Dead Beating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's just written so many great songs. Well, one of my friends had a staff writing gig with him, and he says, Ron, Harlan's best friend was Patsy Cline. You think you could bring LeAnn in? Because he doesn't know about her. It's before she was known out in that circle.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I would love that, because I would love for her to meet him and him to meet her. And I brought her in to his publishing office, and she sang Blue for him, and he just broke down in tears.
Yeah.
And I asked him, he says, is there anything I can do for you boys? And I said, yes, you could do something for me. I would like to know the piece of advice you most wish you had gotten the day you landed here, knowing what you know now.
Yeah.
And he says, simplicity is the ultimate complexity.
I agree.
And,
Yeah.
If you can express something, simply, then you've really expressed, if you can tie something complex into something simple, that's powerful. And so my advice to someone that's trying is understand this. God can make something out of nothing in a flash of an instant that you could try to plan and study and work on your entire life. But like in a millisecond, he can make it happen. And that's what he did for me. He went, I know the only way I'm going to get to that boy is just, I'm going to get his attention.
Bring him a
Bam!
superstar.
Yeah.
And I got to meet all these people and figure out they're just people.
Yeah.
And the stuff that matters is not what I thought mattered when I went into it, full of ambition.
Yeah.
And so I would say, if you're supposed to write, this is what I told Matt, the guy I was just telling you about. You think I'm too old to do this? I just want to make an art project. I said, I was 41 before anything happened. How old are you?
Yeah.
If you're supposed to write, do it.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing. I don't know if we have time, but there's.
Go for it.
All right. This is.
I have
just
one last
example.
question after
Yes.
your last thing.
That's fine. But this illustrates why I say this to people. There's a gentleman named Uriah Renzel who was a professor at DBU in the music department, ran the studio there, and just really a great guy. And I met him in the studio on a studio session. In fact, he was playing bass for something.
Yeah.
And we got to be friends. And he wound up inviting me to guest to teach one of his classes at the school. They like to bring in people from the industry and stuff like that. Well, then he got his PhD, and he said, "Hey, Ron, you mind if I just come pick your brain about music? Now, because I'm about to go, get a job doing all this,
Right.
not teaching." And I said, "Sure, we'll go to lunch." And we got to talking, and he says, "How can you make money with this songwriting thing and make it, your living? It's." And that's the very question I had asked, myself when I started out. And I said, "This is the truth." I said, there is no way if you can't do it with that. If you're supposed to do it, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. I said, but you have to do it because it's going to touch somebody somewhere. And that's why it matters.
Yeah.
And I said, and I believe if you really feel that calling, like you probably feel that calling to ministry, I said, I'll give you an example. And I said, the cool thing about it, though, for me, being a writer, nobody knows who you are. They, for the most part, you don't have to deal with all the garbage of the fame in the business and all this crazy stuff. I said, they don't know who you are. I said, I'll give you an example. My favorite songwriter on the face of the earth, I don't know his name. I said, he wrote a song about sitting at the feet of Jesus. And, and I said, and my daughter, who passed away, came in my studio and sang that song 3 years before she passed away. Mm-hmm. And when I play the song for her children, for her siblings, for myself, and here she is singing about sitting at the feet of Jesus, I said, that guy right there that wrote that song has no idea how much impact he had in my life.
Yeah.
And he says, what's the name of the song? And I said, The More I Seek You. And he said, and he just face just got all pale, and he says, my neighbor wrote that song.
Wow.
I'm like, I rest my case.
Yeah,
That's
no
what I
kidding.
told him. I rest my case. And
Yeah.
then, and it's like, and I got to talk to the guy,
Yeah.
and he told me when he wrote that song, that was his first. He knew that song was going to do something, and all of the profits that from that song goes to this charity that for women that are battered or women that are being trafficked, and it's always been that way.
That's too cool.
And he told me story after story of, the way that song has touched people.
That's awesome.
And that's just God. You
Yeah.
know, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So,
Well, a collection of very cool stories today. Ron, appreciate it. Well, if this is it, if this is the last time, I've got 2 questions. 2-parter.
okay.
Number 1, will you be my friend?
Of course.
Okay, good. Number 2, what's the best planet other than Earth?
The best planet other than Earth? I don't know.
It's Saturn.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. For me, it's heaven's not a planet, but
Yeah, this is true.
but
This is true.
The correct answer was Saturn. Well, we would have taken Mars also.
gotcha.
Yeah, but
Well,
just
see, I
because
didn't
that's
get the
where
cheat
LeAnn
sheet,
Rimes
so
is trying to go.
I
Yeah.
didn't get the cheat sheet, so
Controlled rallyiness has no rules.
Yep.
The points don't matter, and there are wrong.
Everything's made up, and the points don't matter. Ron, thanks so much for being on the show today, man. I appreciate it. It's been great to catch up.
Yeah, and become friends.
Yeah, there you go. Think about that.
I'm Ron Grimes, a songwriter, producer, and this is the reason why you should never listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate.